So anyways, let's check out the Durham Report. I want to check out the executive summary, starts on page 7. So we're just going to go through the executive summary. Like I said, I'm not reading 316 pages. I just want to go into what it is that they presumably found, because I'm seeing everyone saying like this proves everything, and then I'm seeing everyone on the left say, well, actually, the Durham Report is a big old nothing burger. Don't pay attention to it. It's nothing. So I'm like, all right, well, let's just read the fucking thing, right?
Yeah, but when the left
else is reporting,
when the left says shit like that, though, to me, it's kind of like this. They're trying to do that same key jingling shit, but there's just the one key, and like no one cares anymore. It's like, why are you jingling that silly shit around?
I don't know that I understood that, and yet I felt it. Like, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it at all, but I got it, you know? All right, so, oh God, I wish I could zoom in just a little bit more. Can I? This is the most I can do. All right, so executive summary. The public record contains a substantial body of information relating to former President Trump's and the Trump Organization's relationship with Russian businesses, Russian business people, and Russian officials, as well as separate evidence of Russia's attempt to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. These and related subjects are well documented in the careful examinations undertaken by the Department's Office of the Inspector General of issues related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation and its use of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act FISA authorities. Before I go on, there's no like news update. They stripped security clearance from all of the FBI whistleblowers. Was it yesterday? Right? Every single one of them, they stripped all of their security clearance, and the left is saying that they're traitors and that they're liars. And it's 3 different whistleblowers from the FBI that are speaking from Congress about how this entire situation was weaponized. January 6th is a weaponized federal investigation, like that the Fed, basically the FBI did January 6th. The FBI made up all of this shit. And they're bringing receipts in their testimony. And so they just got rid of their security clearance, and they're, you know, they're all on administrative leave, but they're all going to be fired. And it'll be interesting to see if they try and prosecute them for some non-crime at some point.
So one, Crossfire Hurricane is the coolest fucking operation name. Like, such a cool name. Love it. 2, they are traitors. They're 100% traitors. If you're on that team, when these people are betraying like the whole mission of saving America and you know, by extension the world.
Democracy.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Whatever they tell themselves to sleep at night. But yeah, they're absolutely traitors. To like, I can't see why the FBI wouldn't see them as traitors. Oh, you're gonna snitch on us now about all the bad things we did. Like, the FBI was formed around gang culture. Like, this is just gangster, like, mob shit all over again, just in your government now. Instead of getting to leave the neighborhood and stop paying protection racket money, you're stuck with it. Sucks to suck.
Do you guys manage your bladders? Well, first of all, we both have penises. That helps a lot. Right?
I personally just put a clothespin on the head of my penis and locks me down for the night.
That's part of it. The other part is that we do pee on stream, on long streams. Like, I probably will pee here in a little bit. The other part is I pee right before stream. I make sure that like a lot of times when you're seeing the intro video rolling, that's like me forcing out the last pee. Like, because I make sure that I pee before stream so that I don't interrupt the stream.
Yeah, I can always tell.
All right. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller, as detailed in his report entitled, sorry, I'm like looking at 2 screens and trying to figure out which one to read. Report on the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, issued in March 2019. And 3, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, entitled Russian Active Measures Campaigns and Interference in the 2016 U.S. election. The scope of these earlier inquiries, the amount of important information gathered, and the contributions they have made to our understanding of Russian election interference efforts are a tribute to the diligent work and dedication of those charged with the responsibility of conducting. Our review and investigation, in turn, is focused on separate but related questions, including the following. Also, I'd like to point out that it was recently broke that 4% of all of the information gathered by the FBI in the last year didn't meet any standard and didn't have a FISA warrant. There's 8,000 different searches that the FBI did from like an internal audit. The internal audit was like, it was like 8,000 times we like snooped into Americans' like emails and things like that. And we didn't really have any justification. We just did it just cause.
So what you're saying is they would get a score of a 96 on a test, and that's an A+.
Yeah, that's an A+. So it's no biggie. No biggie. Not to be confused with 2020 when it was 18%.
I mean, that's a B-, but still.
Yeah. All right. So was there adequate prediction for the FBI to open the cross?
I mean,
I hate you.
It's a difference that matters.
Yeah, but like interrupting people to correct their word instead of just letting it pass, it's just like it's really like, I don't know, just shitty.
I'm gonna see it upsets you.
Adequate predication, all right, for the FBI to open the Crossfire Hurricane investigation from its inception on July 31st, 2016, as a full counterintelligence and foreign agents registration act investigation, given the requirements of the Attorney General, yada yada yada. Was the opening of the Crossfire Hurricane as full investigation consistent with how the FBI handled other intelligence prior to 2016 concerning attempts foreign interests to influence Clinton and other campaigns? Similarly, did the FBI properly consider other significant intelligence it received at virtually the same time as those used to predicate Crossfire Hurricane, which, God, you're right, that is such a dope name. But which related not to the Trump campaign. It's like, I don't want to like these fuckers, but I'm like, that's a good name. That's a good name. You got to give them that.
Just hey, before we defund the FBI, tell us who comes up with your code names, because we're keeping them.
Right? Like, I want to hire them. Like, we're not keeping them, but I do want to hire them for something. Seems like a declaration award to me, but sure, B-. Yeah, pretty much. All right, but rather to a purported Clinton campaign plan to, quote, vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services, which might have shed light on some of the Russia information the FBI was receiving from third parties, including the Steele dossier, the Alpha Bank allegations, and confidential human source CHS reporting. If not, were any provable federal crimes committed in failing to do so? Was there evidence that the actions of any FBI personnel or third parties relating to the Crossfire Hurricane investigation violated any federal criminal statuses, including the prohibition against making false statements to federal officials? If so, was that evidence sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? And lastly, was there evidence that the actions of the FBI or department personnel in providing false or incomplete information to the FISC violated any federal criminal status? And again, any reasonable doubt. As set for our findings and conclusion regarding these questions are sobering. As set forth in greater detail in section 4, blah, 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 before the initial receipt by FBI headquarters of information from Australia on July 28, 2016, concerning comments reportedly made in a tavern by May 6, 2016 by George Papadopoulos, an unpaid foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. The government possessed no verified intelligence reflecting that Trump or Trump campaign was involved in a conspiracy or collaborative relationship with officials of the Russian government. Indeed, based on the evidence gathered in the multiple exhaustive and costly federal investigations of these matters, including the instant investigation, neither U.S. law enforcement nor the intelligence community appears to have possessed any actual evidence of collusion in their holdings at the commencement of the investigation.
So based on something that someone said in a bar, we spent tens of millions of dollars looking into nothing.
Not just looking into, but threatening Trump's team with putting their son in jail so that they couldn't be a resource to stopping war, slandering his name, attempting to allow Hillary Clinton to win the election, lying about what it is that they were investigating, what information they had,
not prosecuting her for her crime.
Right, exactly. I mean, like it was a deliberate coup by the FBI as a means of being able to take over and ensure that the right person was elected. And they thought that they had done enough, that they didn't do enough, so they made sure they did more in 2020.
And it worked.
Yep. As set forth in greater detail in Section 4, the record in this matter reflects that upon receipt of unevaluated intelligence information from Australia, the FBI swiftly opened the investigation, in particular at the direction of Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, Peter Storzik. Immediately. Storzik, at a minimum, had pronounced hostile feelings towards Trump. The matter was opened as a full investigation without ever having spoken to persons who provided the information. So we heard from somebody in Australia. Oh my God. Mark, we're going to get through this. And you shitting on stream to intentionally drive viewers away is not a good way to be a good co-host.
That's not what it was doing, but okay.
Further, the FBI did so without any significant review of its own intelligence databases, collection and examination of any relevant intelligence from other U.S. intelligence entities, interviews of witnesses essential to understand the raw information it had received, or using any of the standard analytical tools typically employed by the FBI in evaluating raw intelligence. So basically, they were just like, we heard it through the grapevine, so we started the investigation.
All hearsay. Wonderful.
All right, nice. Had it done so, again, as set out in section such and such, the FBI would have learned that their own experienced Russia analysts had no information about Trump being involved with Russian leadership officials, nor were others in sensitive positions at the CIA, the NSA, and the Department of State aware of such evidence concerning the subject. In addition, FBI records prepared by Storzik, how do you say it?
Strzok.
Strzok?
That's the only way I've heard it pronounced in multiple news sources and very famous podcasts.
Fuck Faggot and his stupid ass name.
I mean, agreed, but also I got to mark down that time. Thanks for that.
Well, oh, if you put it on YouTube? Yeah, no. From here on out, I'm not doing my botched pronunciation or the correct one. We're going with Stork.
Okay.
In February and March 2017 show that at the time of the opening of Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI had no information in its holdings indicating that any time during the campaign, anyone in the Trump campaign had been in contact with any Russian intelligence officials. So basically, they didn't even have no evidence. They had evidence to the contrary, which is we're tracking all of this shit and there's literally no connection here whatsoever. We heard a rumor from someone in Australia.
So obviously they weren't digging hard enough.
God, this is crazy. I mean, it's all stuff we kind of could have assumed or knew already, but it's crazy to hear it set out that, like, yeah, they did. Not only did they not know what the fuck they were talking about, they didn't ask anybody and they didn't use any tools or talk to anybody because they knew in their heart of hearts that it was bullshit. So they intentionally didn't go through any process to verify the information so that they could play dumb as they staged their coup.
They're acting like a clingy girlfriend who hears a rumor that their man was seen with some other chick, and then they just go tearing through that man's life. And it's like, no, everything you're seeing is telling you that didn't happen. And that friend of yours, like many women relationships, is very backstabbing and conniving. And you just went, no, she would never lie to me, and he's a piece of shit. I mean, obviously these people are much differently motivated, but the behavior is similar.
I literally have more respect for a girlfriend that finds a long hair of a color that's not hers than the FBI at this point.
I mean, that is more evidence than apparently has been found.
Right, it's literally more evidence, and as we know, like, it's the weakest. Like, I feel like that's happened to every dude. At some point, their girl has been like, "Who's this hair from?" Like, bitch, I don't fucking know. Look how much hair is on my shirt currently. Like, hair gets caught on clothing. Like, you found a hair in my car that's blonde. Like, I'm not getting my dick wet in the fucking car. Like, it's just a random fucking hair. It happens.
I'd always just blame the dog. Obviously, it's a dog hair.
Mm-hmm. The speed and manner in which the FBI opened and investigated Crossfire Hurricane during the presidential election season based on raw, unanalyzed, and uncorroborated intelligence also reflected a noticeable departure from how it approached prior matters involving possible attempted foreign election interference plans aimed at the Clinton campaign. As described in Section 4B, in the 18 months leading up to the 2016 election, the FBI was required to deal with a number of proposed investigations that had the potential of affecting the election. In each of these instances, the FBI moved with considerable caution. In one such matter discussed in Section 4B1, FBI headquarters and department officials required defensive briefings to be provided to Clinton and other officials or candidates who appeared to be targets of foreign interference. In another, the FBI elected to end an investigation after one of its longtime and valuable CHSs went beyond what was authorized and made an improper and possibly illegal financial contribution to the Clinton campaign on behalf of a foreign entity as a precursor to a much larger donation being contemplated. Just like
not only did they not find evidence, not only did they get evidence to the contrary, but they also got evidence that the other team was doing all the shit they were hunting down.
And then they shut it down.
Well, she didn't mean to. She didn't have the intent behind it.
Yeah. Nevertheless, that there was Russian interference for the Clintons, provably. Or it's another tool, another thing that the FBI does, which is they justify their own job by trying to create fucking problems, which is very easily could have been. And in a third, the Clinton Foundation matter, both senior FBI and department officials placed restrictions on how those matters were to be handled, such that essentially no investigative activities occurred for months leading up to the election. These examples are also markedly different from the FBI's actions with respect to other highly significant intelligence it received from a trusted foreign source pointing to a Clinton campaign plan to vilify Trump by tying him to Vladimir Putin so as to divert attention from her own concerns relating to her use of private email server. Duh, like we all know that, right? Unlike the FBI's opening of a full investigation of unknown members of the Trump campaign based on raw, uncorroborated information, in this separate matter involving a purported Clinton campaign plan, the FBI never opened any type of inquiry, issued any taskings, employed any analytical personnel, or produced any analytical products in connection with the information. This lack of action was despite the fact that the significance of the Clinton plan intelligence was such as to have prompted the director of the CIA to brief the president, vice president, attorney general, director of the FBI, and other senior government officials about its content within days of its receipt. It was also of enough importance for the CIA to send a formal written referral memorandum to Director Comey and the Deputy Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Peter Strzok, for their consideration and action. The investigative referral provided examples of information the Crossfire Hurricane Fusion Cell had gleaned to date.
We guesstimated.
Yeah, so basically they knew immediately that there was information with Russian intelligence and plans to tie Trump to these situations, and they didn't do any investigation on the supposed Clinton is doing whatever they can to try and secretly tie Trump to the Russians. And they're like, well, anyways, set that aside. We heard a rumor that Trump might be tied to the Russians from somewhere. We're not going to look into it. Instead, we're going to investigate the fuck out of them. And we're going to let the American public know about Russian interference in the election on behalf of Trump.
And it's going to be a 24/7 news cycle for 6 months straight.
it seems like there's like this dude in the office at the FBI that's like, hey, and they were like, where do you guys think this room came from? And like one person was like, maybe we should investigate where the rumor came from, since we know that Hillary Clinton is trying to spread rumors about this. And then like the meme switches to him being thrown out the window. You know, it's like, oh, yeah. I don't know, maybe that's where it came from.
But in reality, it more so just seems like everyone is already on the same page.
Well,
like,
except
who
for those
can't
fucking
win?
whistleblowers.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Within days after opening Crossfire Hurricane, the FBI opened full investigations on 4 members of the Trump campaign team: George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn. No defensive briefing was provided to Trump or anyone in the campaign concerning the information received from Australia that suggested there might be some type of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, either prior to or after these investigations were opened. Instead, the FBI began working on requests for the use of FISA authorities against Page and Papadopoulos. The effort was related to Papadopoulos, proved unsuccessful. Similarly, the initial effort directed at Page was unsuccessful until the Crossfire Hurricane investigators first obtained what were designated as company intelligence reports generated by Christopher Steele. The Steele dossier that Clinton paid for. As set forth in sections 4D1B2 and 3.
Wasn't Carter Page a CIA asset?
Mm-hmm. And in brief below, the Steele reports were first provided to the FBI in early July 2016, but for unexplained reasons only made their way to Crossfire Hurricane investigators in mid-September. The reports were ostensibly assembled based on information provided to Steele and his company by a, quote, primary subsource, end quote, who the FBI eventually determined in December 2016 was Igor. I'm not saying that last name. Lunchenko. Our investigation determined that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators did not and could not corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in the Steele reporting. Nor was Steele able to produce corroboration for any of the reported allegations, even after being offered $1 million or more by the FBI for such corroboration. Yeah, I had forgotten about that they offered him $1 million fucking to come up with any evidence. And he's like, yeah, but I don't have any. I just made it up, man. I mean, I have a subsource, a primary subsource I can't give up.
What's his ID? Careful now.
That's so crazy. Further, when interviewed by the FBI in January 2017, Dunchenko also was unable to corroborate any of the substantive allegations in the reports. Rather, Dunchenko characterized the information he provided to Steele as, quote, rumor and speculation, end quote, and the product of casual conversation. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of par for the course, but I mean, it's still crazy to see it written out here. Section whatever describes other efforts undertaken by the Crossfire Hurricane investigators working on the Page FISA application. These efforts included having CHSs record conversations with Page, Papadopoulos, and senior Trump foreign policy advisor. Yeah, this is when they wiretapped him without letting him know, someone running for president to gain information to try and spread rumors on behalf of the Clinton campaign. The FBI's own records and the recordings established that Page made multiple exculpatory statements to the individual identified as CHS-1, but the Crossfire and Hurricane investigators failed to make that information known to the department attorneys or to the FISC. So again, the FBI lied with information that they had that proved her innocence, but they didn't care because they just left it out of reports so they could continue investigating the Trump campaign because the Russians got to be there.
And Kamala Harris wasn't even in charge yet.
Right. This is kind of like, you know, like when like some white lady in the 1950s accuses a black guy of raping her, and it's like there's no evidence other than like hearsay, And like the cops are like, but we know that black monkey did it. And like they're just like trying to find evidence. And like they're just like, that's what this was, but against Trump. And it was for, you know, your president.
Well, the people can't be allowed to enact their will because that would just be silly.
Yeah,
not that you can anyways, but.
Right. Sorry, I had to find it. Refuting allegations contained in the Steele reporting about his lack of any relationship with Paul Manafort. But the FBI failed to follow logical investigative leads related to those statements and to report to department lawyers what they found. Similarly, multiple recordings of Papadopoulos were made by CHS-1 and a second CHS, in which Papadopoulos also made multiple exculpatory statements that were not brought to the attention of the department lawyers or the FISC. So everyone they're investigating
that was just bar talk.
was proving were proving their innocence, and they did no investigation about that or about where any of the shit came from or anything like that.
Yeah, but those statements weren't made like in a deposition or anything. Like that was just, you know,
so you
two dudes talking. I mean, they weren't in a bar. How are you going to take it serious?
Furthermore, our investigation resulted in the prosecution and conviction of an FBI OGC attorney for intentionally falsifying a document that was material to the FISC's consideration of one of the Page FISA applications. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like cool. You had your fall guy. Okay, that fucking matters. I mean, the FBI was never constitutional, and that state power was never morally ethically justified to begin with. But Jesus Christ, how can you not just be like, hey, yeah, I remember that he got to go home because his wife was pregnant. I mean, I'd forgotten about that, but now that you mentioned it, I'm like, oh yeah. Oh man. In the spring of 2016, Perkins Coie, a U.S.-based international law firm acting as counsel to the Clinton campaign, retained Fusion GPS, a U.S.-based investigative firm, to conduct opposition research on Trump and his associates. In mid-May 2016, Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS met with Steele in the UK and subsequently retained Steele and his firm, Orbis Business Intelligence, to investigate Trump's ties to Russia. Steele described himself as a former intelligence official for the British government and was also at the time an FBI CHS. What do you know? Beginning in July 2016 and continuing through December 2016, the FBI received a series of reports from Steele and Orbis that contained derogatory information about Trump concerning Trump's purported ties to Russia. My favorite in that whole thing was that Trump supposedly went to the same hotel Obama went to and then hired prostitutes and pissed on them in the bed. You're muted.
No. He wanted them to pee on him in the bed the Obamas used, apparently.
Yeah, just to sully Obama because he was so angry. Like, who the fuck reads that and goes like, where's this coming from? How is this not just made up bullshit?
Instead, there's like, I mean, he has a gold toilet. I guess he likes golden showers too.
I mean, right? Yeah, and the guy's a germ freak. Like, he only eats at McDonald's and fast food restaurants because he's worried about like getting food poisoning or anything like that. So he goes to places where they have like set corporate standards of cooking. As discussed in the section, blah, blah, Steele provided the first of his reports to his FBI handler on July 5th. These reports were colloquially referred to as the Steele dossier or Steele reports. I do love too, like the idea that like he's working for the Clinton campaign and the FBI, and like we're supposed to pretend like the Clinton campaign and the FBI weren't working together. Like,
right? Makes total sense.
Like, this is how the 3 layers of fanfic is how we ended up with 50 Shades. Yes, 50 Shades of Grey started off as Twilight fan fiction.
50 Shades of Grey is better storytelling than this.
As noted, it was not until mid-September that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators received several of the Steele reports. Within days of their receipt, the unvetted and unverified Steele reports were used to support probable cause. in the FBI's FISA applications targeting Page, a U.S. citizen who, for a period of time, had been an advisor to Trump. As discussed later in the report, this was done at a time when the FBI knew that the same information Steele had provided to the FBI had also been fed to the media and others in Washington, D.C. In particular, one allegation contained in an undated Steele report identified as 2016-095 described a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between Trump, his campaign, and senior officials. This allegation would ultimately underpin the 4 FISA applications targeting Page. Specifically, the allegation stated, speaking in confidence to a compatriot in late July 2016, Source E, an ethnic Russian close associate of Republican U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump, admitted that there was well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between them and the Russian leadership. This was managed on the Trump side by the Republican candidate's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who was using foreign policy advisor Carter Page and others as intermediaries. The two sides had a mutual interest in defeating Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, whom President Putin apparently both hated and feared.
Why? Because she's such a bad bitch? Oh, no. Gaddafi.
She will kill a motherfucker. I mean, she will smile about killing a motherfucker, to be honest.
We came, we saw, he died.
Who do you think has a higher kill count? Like the Clintons or Putin? Like if we're ignoring like government actions to like go like do like war type shit, like the troops, right? Like a personal kill count to like maintain their status and power.
Total, the Clintons by their own hand, Putin.
Oh yeah. By own hand, I wouldn't put it past the Clintons to have never done so. But like Putin's probably killed a couple.
They would only do that to someone who really pissed them off.
Right.
Otherwise, it's really not. To me, it seems like Hillary. It seems to be personal.
You get real sad, and then you go out into a field and a farm, and you go and you tie a noose around your neck, and then you sit down in a seat. And then, but you stand, but you sit, but you stand, but you sit. You stand on the seat with a noose, and then you take a double barrel shotgun, and you only pull one of the triggers in the double barrel shotgun, and it flies 30 feet away, and then you sit down, in the seat because the noose had plenty of slack with like the brand new bullets all neatly packed in your car on the property. That's what happens. These things, they happen. That's not Clinton murdering anybody.
I believe
the CIA doing so to like protect, someone that helped bring in Epstein into the White House on several occasions. Like nothing weird going on there with that guy. He just, he got sad, man. We all get sad sometimes, and that's how most people handle being sad.
We all get a little sad sometimes.
So Igor, as noted, the FBI attempted over time to investigate and analyze the Steele reports, but ultimately was not able to confirm or corroborate any of the substantive allegations contained in those reports. In the context of these reports, and as discussed in section blah, 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 the FBI learned that Steele relied primarily... Dude, I'm not going to read out 4.D.1.B.9 and 10. It's not happening, boys. The FBI learned that Steele relied primarily on a U.S.-based Russian national, Igor, to collect information that ultimately formed the core allegations found in the reports. Specifically, our investigation discovered that Donchenko himself had told another person that he, Donchenko, was responsible for 80% of the intel and 50% of the analysis contained in the Steele dossier. Man.
Oh, gotta love a rad Russian,
Right? What if it was like Fivehead and the guy's actually just working for Putin, and Putin was like, I'll feed them obviously dumb information, and then it'll get exposed, and like Hillary Clinton campaign will be over, but he just didn't count on how corrupt and dumb like the institutions in the US are. And he was like, wait a minute, this totally backfired. Like, fuck, all right, man. I mean, I guess it worked out.
I mean, it's a win-win for him because you see the destabilization of the U.S. state and like them flailing to grasp at power again.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've been on our state, as it were, has been on the back foot for several years now, trying to clean up messes.
I saw, what was it? Oh, fuck, what is his name? The Fox News guy, Tucker Carlson. I saw him on a recent right, yeah, but nevertheless. I saw him on a podcast and he was talking about like America and like foreign policy, and he's like, we lost. And they were like, what do you mean? He was like the whole point of U.S. foreign policy has been to stop other countries from being bigger than us. That's the whole point of our foreign policy, is to maintain our power and to make sure nobody else is more powerful than us. He's like, but in a group, they can be, right? Like, and he gave an analogy, and he was like, like you go and you like hit on some girl in a bar and her boyfriend comes over and you can beat him up, but like you got to make sure that his friends don't jump in or you'll lose the fight. And he was like, yeah, America's really big and bad and powerful. He's like, but now we've lost. Like Russia and China are cozying up to each other. Russia, the largest landmass with a massive amount of resources and oil and gas and energy, whilst we've destroyed ours. And then China, which is an economic powerhouse with 1.3 billion people. He's like, so we have the largest landmass, the most people, an economic powerhouse, and massive amounts of resources.
And those two countries touch.
Right, and it's like we lost, like we failed at our goal. And I was like, damn, when you put it that way, it just kind of makes sense. And I'm like, well, fuck.
And they're in a more strategic location because they can easily impact Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, that whole, basically everywhere but the Americas is like right there for them.
Right. Yeah. A badass Conaquin. We'll be meeting with the local people here soon. In Virginia. We gotta clean up what's going on in Virginia. It is already a shit show just from the scheduling. It is like, well, we might meet at this tavern on this day, maybe. Okay, we're meeting at that tavern on that day. What time? Well, that's where we're meeting, in the back room. So it's like, all right, thanks. We finally got a time.
I will say, though, I read the menu of the place it's being held at, and I'm pretty excited.
All right, fair enough.
And they do have a gluten-free menu.
All right. So moving forward. December 2016, the FBI identified Danchenko as Steele's primary subsource. Igor agreed to meet with the FBI, and under protection of an immunity letter, he and his attorney met with the Crossfire Hurricane investigators on January 25th, 26th, 2017. Thereafter, from January 2017 through October 2020, and as part of its efforts to determine the truth or falsity of specific information in the Steele reports, the FBI conducted multiple interviews with Igor regarding, among other things, the information he provided to Steele. As discussed in the section below, during these interviews, Igor was unable to provide any corroborating evidence to support the Steele allegations, and further described his interactions with his subsources as rumor and speculation and conversations of a casual nature. Significant parts of what Igor told the FBI were inconsistent with what Steele told the FBI during his prior interviews on October 2016 and September 2017. At no time, however, was the FISC informed of these inconsistencies. Moreover, notwithstanding the repeated assertions in the Page FISA applications that Steele's primary subsource was based in Russia, Igor for many years had lived in the Washington, D.C. area. After learning that Igor continued to live in the Washington area and had not left except for domestic and foreign travel, the FBI never corrected this assertion in the 3 subsequent Page FISA renewal applications. Rather, beginning in March 2017, the FBI engaged Igor as a CHS and began making regular financial payments to him for information, none of which corroborated Steele's reporting. Oh my God. Like, this is like, it's just a complete and utter shit show of randomness. Like, they're just making it up as they go along, paying people, and then just taking whatever sounds nice and reporting it as fact so that they can try and find something.
It's like a fucking Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, except the DHS and CISA and all that are using this information that is all made up bullshit to censor Twitter and to pressure YouTube and Google and the Aspen Institute and corporations to censor any form of free speech that they can find and to like silence anybody that might be conservative, all based on Russian interference that from the very beginning was based upon no evidence. The only evidence that was ever created was created. The Steele dossier was created, and then individuals at the Aspen Institute and other organizations just made up fucking accounts and sold it, and they knew it was all fake and made up, and then they never got in trouble. They still work in big corporations and consulting firms.
I mean, I guess the moral of the story is don't run your mouth off at a tavern.
Yeah, no, for sure, Roland. Importantly, and as discussed in the section below, the FBI knew in January 27 that Igor had been subject of an FBI counterintelligence investigation from 2009 to 2011. In late 2008, while Igor was employed by the Brookings Institute, he engaged two fellow employees about whether one of the employees might be willing or able in the future to provide classified information in exchange for money. Oh my God. According to one employee, Donchenko believed that he, the employee, might be following a mentor into the incoming Obama administration and have access to classified information. I didn't know this one. During this exchange, Donchenko informed the employee that he had access to people who were willing to pay for classified information. The concerned employee passed this information to a U.S. government contact, and the information was subsequently passed to the FBI.
Oh, but big problem. That's who the source is. That's who wants that info. So we're back to square one.
Based on the information in 2009, the FBI opened a preliminary investigation into Donchenko. The FBI converted its investigation into a full investigation after learning that Donchenko had been identified as an associate of two FBI counterintelligence subjects and had previous contact with the Russian embassy and known Russian intelligence officers. So the guy was literally a Russian spy.
The Stanchenko guy looks like a lying spy.
Also, as discussed in the section below, at an earlier time, agents had interviewed several former colleagues of Donchenko who raised concerns about Donchenko's potential involvement with Russian intelligence. For example, one such colleague who had learned at a U.S. intelligence agency informed the office that Donchenko frequently inquired about that person's knowledge of a specific Russian military matter. Meanwhile, in July 2010, the FBI initiated a request to use FISA authorities against Donchenko, which was subsequently routed to department attorneys in August 2010. However, the investigation into Donchenko was closed in March 2011 after the FBI incorrectly concluded that Donchenko had left the country and returned to Russia.
Also, thank you for the sub, Conical.
Nice.
That Rumble sub.
Let's go. We got a Rumble subscription, boys. So if you have not paid anybody on Rumble before, you do have to do a Rumble rant. But as you can see, it need only be $1 so you can link your card. However, once you do that, right, you won't have to do that ever again for anybody, right? Like you can just go to another place and you can automatically subscribe because your card is linked to the account and it's good to go. This is just to make sure that your card is like set up to work, right? So you can do that with anywhere. But of course, like if you want us to do reactions or you really want us to make sure that we read what it is that you're saying, you know, Rumble rants are a great way to support the channel and make sure that we do like a reaction of some sort and encourage other people to subscribe, etc., whatever it is you want to do. You cannot buy subscriptions for other people as of yet. I've spoken with Rumble, with people at Rumble, and they say that like it is in the works, but like they're more concerned with like third-party API, fixing some bugs, getting it able to work on mobile because you need to be on a browser, either on the PC or on your phone, and like they want to get that set up on the mobile app, etc. But I appreciate it, Conaquin, I do.
Hell yeah.
Our review found no indication that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators ever attempted to resolve the prior Donchenko espionage matter before opening him as a paid CHS. Moreover, our investigation found no indication that the Crossfire Hurricane investigators disclosed the existence of Donchenko's unresolved counterintelligence investigation to the department attorneys who were responsible for drafting the FISA renewal applications targeting Carter Page. As a result, the FISC was never advised of information that very well may have affected the FISC's view of Steele's primary subsource and Steele's reliability and trustworthiness. Equally important is the fact that in not resolving Donchenko's status vis-a-vis the Russian intelligence services, it appears the FBI never gave appropriate consideration to the possibility that the intelligence Donchenko was provided to Steele, which again, according to Donchenko himself, made up a significant majority of the information the Steele dossier reports, was in whole or in part Russian disinformation. Yeah. But see, like the thing here, what I don't really like about this, did this on Brave so it works on non-mainstream browsers. Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, Brave is a Chromium. So that just means likely that it works on Chromium. So if you're using like purple, like Tor or something, like it might not work. But if you're just using a Chromium or Firefox or something like that, it probably does. But you know, if you're on like a Tor browser or something, like I don't know who the fuck watches a stream on Tor, but this is Rumble, so like I imagine there's probably some people that like, you know what I mean, like that are like I'm against these fucking people tracking me, man. Like I'm sure that some of you guys do that. You know what I mean, and more power to you. I'm just saying I can't confirm whether or not it works on that. That being said, what's really interesting is the way that this is written is almost written as an apology letter to the state. Like it is trying to sell the idea of incompetence from a few bad apples in this investigation, and then like washing the hands of the lawyers because, well, this information wasn't provided. And it's, you can tell that the Durham Report is already painting a picture to target a couple of bad apples and to say that these bad apples were like a problem, but that the institution was like flouted because these bad apples lied to other people. And without that, this wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, it's another damage control op to protect the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's written in such a way as to protect the honor and integrity of the FBI and besmirch these few individuals that were corrupt and working, you know, blah, blah, blah. They're having their cake and eating it too. And it's like, no, go fuck yourself. I got to get some water before I continue. I'll be right back.
Oh, no, now it's just me. It's so weird how delayed the stream is for me. So like I just look over and then now I'm seeing the scrolling. It gets better and then some people just refuse to cooperate. I mean, we'll see. This has been a wild ride so far. And it's shocking to me. No, I guess it's not. I would say it's shocking that people are getting away with it, but been like this for what, 100 years now? I tolerate all of you, Connickman. It is an existence. No, I mean, this sure just beats being in the army again. Although sometimes I do fantasize about returning to my early 20s. Some of the things that happened. Wasn't all bad. I'd probably skip the first year. Yeah. Skip like right into midway into the deployment. Actually, that'd probably be terrifying. If you could just mentally time travel and just send your consciousness back in time. It's like, what am I going to do? Let me just jump back to right in the middle of that time I was in a war zone. Just like hang out there. That would be startling.
I don't want to go back in time because I feel like I would be dangerous. Like I would like having the adult brain and like a young man's body. Like I would like to think that I would be a moral person, but I would probably take advantage of a lot of like 19 to 20-year-old girls.
Full redo of Healer up in here. All right.
Yeah. Like it's like, yeah, redo Healer. Dude, I only got to like episode 2. And I was just like,
it was hard to watch.
Yeah, I could not. I like, boys, I got a pretty strong stomach, but like, and if I had to watch it, I would watch redo of Healer. But like, I got to like episode 2 and I was like, I don't want it. Like, this is such bad vibes. Like, this is horrible. For those of you that don't know, if you don't watch a lot of anime, Redo of Healer is a fucked up one. It's like that one scene in the beginning of Goblin Slayer. If that was like half of the anime, it's like, it's rough. Like, Goblin Slayer ain't got shit on Redo of Healer. Like,
I love Goblin Slayer though. It's a good one.
Goblin Slayer is good once you get past the first episode. Honestly, like the first episode is really awkward and like, what the fuck, right? But they're
really trying to set a stage for how it's like, yeah, goblins, you're a normal person. Goblins aren't no fucking joke.
Right. It's like people like to think of the furry fuzzy animals, but it's like, watch a video of a bear mauling someone, right? Like, This isn't a joke. Like, these are sentient evil creatures. They don't fucking, they don't have like an XP value number in a video game and then their bodies disappear. Like, no, they kidnap people and murder and rape them and like knife them to death. Like, it sells it. It's good. Goblin Slayer is an amazing app. But anyways, getting away from Goblin Slayer, something that is only slightly more disturbing than this document we're reading. Let us continue on the, I almost don't believe this document. The more I'm reading about this document, the more it seems like the document is trying to sell a narrative of learned helplessness whilst putting forward the information that like has to be put forward because there's too many questions, right? And it's like, cool, you did an investigation. You investigated yourselves. The state investigated themselves. No other entity was able to come in and like actually review any of these documents. The state investigated ourselves, and what we found was these few bad apples, but like, but the institutions are strong. Like, yeah, it really feels like
no, the institutions rock.
You got cut off.
The institutions aren't strong, they're struck.
They're struck. Yeah. I kind of agree. Like, the more I'm reading this, the more bullshit it feels like. Where's the information where you got massive amounts of warrants for like all communications between the Hillary Clinton campaign? Like, where's the investigation where you contacted the Five Eyes and like spoke to, MI5, right? In the UK to like gain and garner their information that they had on Steele and Russian intelligence. Like, where is all of this? Like, instead, it's like, we looked at the case files of the FBI team and we found that they didn't do a good enough job and that they were biased and that like they didn't give the appropriate information. Like, this just feels like bullshit. Like this feels like I'm being spoon-fed like an excuse of a few bad apples when we really know that the entire system is fucking corrupt. And like, these are the same people that like, people involved in this are the same people that flew to a fucking island to fuck children, right? And then blackmail those people with like millions of fucking dollars in corrupt money, like at the powers that be, to get so that like Putin could like buy like salt mines somewhere and like make a deal with Clinton on like profits of certain things in Ukraine. Like these people are disgusting monsters. They're pedophiles, right? That order fucking children at parties, and like, we don't get to talk about any of that shit. But like, the big takeaway from this is a few bad apples did a bad job of investigating, and like, they gave money to somebody they shouldn't have, and like, they like kind of covered up the the exculpatory evidence. Like, this reads like something from a fucking like a bad lead investigator on like a 1980s fucking crime case that hid information to the DA and the DA totally wasn't in on it. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, this just reads like bullshit.
Well, this is a lot like Yemen in that this is just meant to placate. There's nothing really behind this other than an attempt to placate the American public and just quiet all this down and get us back to normal. But we can talk about normal until the cows come home. So,
all right. During the relevant time period, Donchenko maintained a relationship with Charles Dolan, a Virginia-based public relations professional who had previously held multiple positions and roles in the DNC and Democratic Party. In his role as a public relations professional, Dolan focused much of his career interacting with Eurasian clients with a particular focus on Russia. As described in the section below, Dolan previously conducted business with the Russian Federation and maintained relationships with several key Russian government officials, including Dmitry Peskov, the powerful press secretary of the Russian presidential administration. A number of these Russian government officials with whom Dolan maintained a relationship and was in contact with at the time Danchenko was collecting information for Steele would later appear in the dossier. In the summer and fall of 2016, at the time Danchenko was collecting information for Steele, Dolan traveled to Moscow, as did Danchenko, in connection with a business conference. As discussed in the section below, the business conference was held at the Ritz-Carlton, Moscow, which, according to the Steele reports, was allegedly the site of a salacious sexual conduct on the part of Trump. Danchenko would later inform the FBI that he learned of these allegations through Ritz-Carlton staff members. Our investigation, however, revealed that it was Dolan, not Danchenko, who actually interacted with the hotel staff identified in the Steele reports. So between the two, Dolan appears the more likely source of the allegations. Yeah, like this feels like now we're going to pin Russian misinformation on the other side. We're going to connect these people to the Russians and say that this is Russian misinformation and that it was actually the other side that was involved in Russia, right? And meanwhile, fucking Hillary Clinton paid for this. Like, why have I not seen Clinton in the last 10 paragraphs?
Is this all just a way to
up again?
Is this all just a way to let Rachel Maddow save some face and keep screaming about Russia, and like being right?
Right?
Is that who this is for? Seems like the only person benefiting right now is anyone just spouting the Russia narrative.
Yeah, except now we're going to point the Russians in the other directions against the Democrats, and nobody's going to talk like Clinton has magically just disappeared. Well, they didn't investigate Clinton this way, and Clinton paid for this. Anyways, let's talk about Russia and Dolan, who's connected to Igor, who's connected to Steele, who's connected to the FBI guys. You know, if we go to FBI guys to Steele, to Igor, to Dolan, to the Russians, and it's actually the Russians that are feeding us this information. Where's the investigation into that? Is that part of this? I don't know. Just feels like bullshit to me. Feels like more fucking statists covering up for other statists and corporations and a whole bunch of people that literally, like, where are the kid fuckers? Name the kid fuckers, right? I want to know who the people are that are fucking...
Give us Ghislaine's testimony.
Right, you know what I mean? I want to know when Clinton was fucking flying on islands and meeting with all of these other people and is buying off shit. Where's other nations that are part of the Five Eyes program, as mentioned Policy Wonka, right? What other Five Eyes information did we get, right? Like, what other connections do we have here? Why are we not like, this seems like more like, this just seems like other people reporting. It's a way to sell a book and capitalize off of, to sell more copies of his book, to capitalize off of the war between Russia and Ukraine and the fact that everybody hates Russia. More propaganda where we're eventually going to lay the fucking blame on Russia, who are bastards, by the way. Like, it's not like the Russian government are like good people in all of this. I don't know that they're any worse than the United States, but, you know, currently they're doing more fucked up shit than the United States. You know what I mean? Like,
different but same, you know?
Yeah, it's like we're dropping a few bombs here and there, but, you know, in some economic manipulation, like they're literally invading a sovereign nation at this point. Sovereign in air quotes, but you know what I mean? Like massive air quotes, I'd like to add. But like, where is this leading to? This feels like I'm being led down this little bullshit path where none of the real players are involved. None of the real corruption is exposed. Even if we're going to talk about, like, in the way they're selling it is the lawyers were given incomplete information. So there's this string of connections that are problematic, from Steele, forget about Clinton magically, to Igor, to Dolan, to the Russians, right? But like the chain from bad fucking FBI agents to the very next people they report to is a broken chain. Like it's just the bad FBI agents. This is these couple bad apples. They might have they had some bias. They really didn't like Trump. but everybody else, like, they were working with improper information. How could they know? How could they, I don't know, demand to see what they're doing? How could there be oversight within an organization that's supposed to have oversight? Why is the director not called out? Why is the entire institution not fucking repugnant and corrupt that this is able to happen, where 2 guys or 3 guys are able to keep, just feed bullshit to some lawyers, and then the entire organization of the FBI can be weaponized against a potential presidential candidate and the current president of the United States? What? This is bullshit. Like, I'm reading this, and it's just, it doesn't, like, yeah, sure, it affirms that the entire story was trash, but it's like fucking, it's breadcrumbs for dumb conservatives to be like, see, we were right all along. Meanwhile, they keep them supporting the fucking state that's bending them over.
Yeah, it's too little, too late. Like, this is meaningless.
Way too little.
And a bunch of conservatives, I haven't seen any reactions to this, but I guarantee you there's a bunch of conservative channels that are just like, it's the bombshell we've been waiting for. This is so great. See?
So I saw, I mean, I tried not to watch them because I wanted to react to it myself and like gain the information that was put out. But I saw that from like Styx Hexenhammer being like, bombshell, it proves this, right? The Quartering doing this. All these fucking pundits not using their fucking brain. And Styx is a smart guy. He should know better. But I'd actually, to be fair, I'm going to watch his video afterwards. But the way he said it might have just been clickbait. So he might be saying the same shit I'm saying, to be fair. But it's a bunch of fucking people not using their fucking brain. And from what I've seen on Twitter, it's a bunch of fucking people like, see, where was like the Rob Noors, like saber rattling against the Democrats. I love you, Rob, but at least Rob is saying the whole fucking thing's corrupt. Fuck them all. Burn it down. I actually like posted and I was like,
I respect that opinion.
Libertarian. I was like, I'll make a proper libertarian out of you yet. And he didn't say anything. He just liked it and just like left it alone. I was like, yeah, you're going to lose a big chunk of your audience. You start calling yourself a libertarian. Oh, man. Continuing on. Furthermore, as discussed below, during the relevant time period, Dolan maintained a business relationship with Olga Golkina. A childhood friend of Donchenko, who, according to Donchenko, was a key source for many of the allegations contained in the Steele reports. In fact, when Golkina was interviewed, that sound is so hard to pronounce and sounds so ugly, but I bet if a hot Russian woman said that name, I'd be like, oh, I like that name.
Hello, my name is Olga Golkina.
Yeah, right. It's like, it gives me that vibe. Anyways, in fact, when Golkina was interviewed by the FBI in August 2017, she admitted to providing Dolan with information that would later appear in the Steele reports. The FBI failed to interview him. Wow. What a shock.
Surprise.
Because it doesn't matter. They didn't care. They got their marching orders, and you're pretending like their marching orders don't exist. That's what's pissing me off. Is that these dudes just were massively incompetent and biased, and like, once we get rid of these people, everything will be okay. It's like bullshit.
Or they were
bullshit.
They were just 2 or 3 rogue actors. They're 2 or 3 rogue actors. They just went rogues. Like, nobody checked in. They got to do this for years. Nobody cared. The fuck is happening at the FBI?
And it launched entire new branches of Department of Homeland Security based off of this, right? But it's just a couple bad guys. And you know how that snowball starts rolling downhill. It just picks up momentum, It
was just knee-jerk reactions from the state.
Yeah,
that's what happened. It wasn't planned.
It wasn't like all of these institutions are corrupt and that they see an opportunity to gain power and they ask no questions. Because I'm willing to believe that it's not this nefarious conspiracy, right? Like, when like interests align, you don't need a conspiracy. It's a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, we got an excuse to gain more power, create new departments and bullshit and censor speech we don't like and ingratiate ourselves with Twitter so that we can put our psychological operations accounts as like special accounts with extra access, and we can control corporate social media, and then we can threaten and use this fake bullshit narrative, of course they didn't ask fucking questions. Like, they don't necessarily need the marching orders. It's just, this is what happens when you give a monopoly on the power, on the usage of power and violence to one institution, and then you have this weak ass fucking made up social contract as a means of justifying their goddamn existence. Is that they just see an opportunity for power, and then they think they're morally good for seizing said power.
But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, it is. And once the cookie crumbles, you get a few breadcrumbs for fucking dumbass right-wingers that think that they're saying something. All along, they're in the giant fucking crowd being pushed in a direction. And it's called the Overton window. As it just pushes more and more towards an increased authoritarianism and increased leftism. Our investigation revealed that Crossfire Hurricane investigators were aware of Dolan and his connections to Danchenko and the Steele reports. In fact, as discussed below, in early October 2016, Steele informed the FBI that Dolan was a person who might have relevant information about Trump. The FBI interviewed hundreds of individuals through the course of Crossfire Hurricane and later investigations, and yet it did not interview Dolan as a possible source of information about Trump. Our investigators interviewed Dolan on several occasions as well. Yeah, because it didn't fit their fucking narrative. This guy that's connected to Russian intelligence is a source and an asset for fucking Steele and Igor. Our investigators interviewed Dolan on several occasions, as well as two other persons mentioned by Steele. Dolan initially denied being a source of information for the Steele reports. When, however, he was shown a particular Steele report relating to Paul Manafort and his resignation as Trump's campaign manager, along with related emails between himself and Danchenko in August 2016, he acknowledged that the reporting mirrored the information he had provided to Igor. Dolan acknowledged to the office that he fabricated this information. Although both Steele and Olga Galkina suggested to the FBI that Dolan might have had some information related to the Steele reports, our investigation was not able to definitively show that Dolan was the actual source, whether wittingly or unwittingly, for any additional allegations set forth in the Steele reports. Regardless, in light of the foregoing, there does not appear to have been an objectively sound reason for the FBI's failure to interview Dolan.
Or at least not one that we can print that won't make people angry.
Yeah, right? Where's the conclusion? I think the conclusion's coming up soon. Yeah, here we go. Danchenko's claims regarding Sergei Milan. Perhaps the most damning allegation to the Steele dossier reports was a company report which Steele attributed to Source E, one of Danchenko's supposed subsources. This report, portions of which were included in each of the 4-page FISA applications, contributed to the public narrative Trump's conspiring and colluding with Russian officials. As discussed in the section below, Danchenko's alleged source for the information, Source E, was an individual by the name of Sergei Milan, who was the president of the Russian-American Chamber of Commerce in New York City and a public Trump supporter. The evidence uncovered by the office showed that Igor never spoke with Sergei Milan and simply fabricated the allegations that he attributed to Milan. I made it up. That's my source. When interviewed by Crossfire Hurricane investigators in late January 2017, Danchenko said that Source E in the report sounded as though it was Sergei Milan. As discussed in the section below, Danchenko stated that he had never actually met Milan. Instead, he said that in late July 2016, he received an anonymous call from a person who did not identify himself, but who spoke with a Russian accent.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Danchenko further explained that he thought it might have been Milan, someone Danchenko previously had emailed twice and received no response. After watching a YouTube video of Milan speaking,
this guy is, we know this guy made up a bunch of bullshit, and you're gonna just be like, yeah, then he just said it was this other way. What?
Made up a bunch of bullshit and worked for the Russians, presumably, in trying to buy FBI officials in 2009, 2010. Thus, as detailed in the section below, the total support for the Source E information contained in the Steele report is a purported anonymous call from someone Danchenko had never met or spoken to, but who he believed might be Sergei Milan, a Trump supporter, based on listening to a YouTube video of Milan. Unfortunately, the investigation revealed that instead of taking even basic steps such as securing telephone call records for either Danchenko or Milan to investigate Danchenko's hard-to-believe story about Milan, the Crossfire Hurricane investigators appear to have chosen to ignore this and other red flags concerning Danchenko's credibility as well as Steele's.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's selling, this entire narrative is selling incompetence on part of a few bad apples that were biased against Trump and a couple of people that were liars with possible ties to the Russians. This allows them to keep the Russia bad narrative, and this allows it to prove Trump wasn't really infiltrated in any way and that the FBI has some problems, but we just need to clean up shop, get rid of a few bad apples. It's not really a big deal. And you can go ahead and forgive the entire state apparatus for all of the censorship and lying and massive growths in power that it did based upon this faulty information that likely, let's be honest, man, this shit isn't coming from a few bad apples in the FBI. If it is, it's just more of a condemnation of the natural structure of the state to run with any excuse to gain power, right? That is an equally valid explanation, right? That is not tackled in any way, shape, or form, and is designed to be apologia for the state.
Yep, 100%.
And at worst, the Hillary Clinton campaign embarked with Russia, colluded with Russians to try and secure victory for the 2016 election, and thought that she had done so that many of the deals that she had made during the State Department could be some form of situation going on. And it almost makes you wonder if the Russians were, if we're just in conspiracy theory land, like, why fucking not? It's not like the Democrats didn't do it for years. Like, it almost makes you wonder if, like, Russia had to delay its invasion of Ukraine, and that really they were just going to gobble up a bunch of resources while the Democrats and things like that worked and ran cover for them.
I mean,
but the situation on the ground changes, with a pandemic and all these other situations and 4-year difference and an entire narrative that's Russia, Russia, Russia.
Time waits for no man.
Mm-hmm. The Alpha Bank allegation, I mean, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm not claiming that's true. I'm just saying, it's a thought. It's a thought based upon more fucking evidence than this shit was, right? Like, it's based upon the big guy and, Burisma and State Department access towards donations to the Clinton Foundation. Right. Donations to the Clinton Foundation and, State Department assets of level 4 labs in Ukraine on the Russian border and kickbacks. There's more evidence to my claim than there ever was for Russia, supporting and colluding with Trump. I mean, if the whole country can be taken for years on that, why can't I put forward a fucking conspiracy theory with more evidence than the FBI ever had? Why not? All I need to do is get a few fucking people paid to make claims. We're good to go.
No, I have a source familiar with Putin's thinking.
Is that Casimir?
Who knows? It's a CHI.
CHS, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yes, sorry.
No, you good. You're right. The office also investigated the actions of Perkins Coie, attorney Michael Sussman, and others in connection with Sussman's provision of data and white papers to FBI General Counsel James Baker, purporting to show that there existed a covert communications channel between the Trump administration and a Russia-based bank called Alpha Bank. As set forward in section below, in doing so, he represented to Baker by text message and in person that he was acting on his own and was not representing any client or company in providing the information to the FBI. Our investigation showed that in a point of fact, these representations to Baker were false and that Sussman was representing the Clinton campaign, as evidenced by, among other things, his law firm's billing records and internal communications. In addition, finally,
some of this is so
strangely
snarky.
Yeah, you're right. In addition, Sussman was representing a second client, a technology executive named Rodney Joff, as evidenced by various written communication, Sussman's subsequent congressional testimony, and other records. Hi, Beaker. Come here. Hi. It's okay. You can come up here. Okay, well, don't meow that fucking loud.
Couldn't hear it.
Oh, you're not getting picked up? What are you doing, honey? All right. Cyber experts from the FBI examined the materials given to Baker and concluded that they did not establish what Sussman claimed they showed. At a later time, Sussman made a separate presentation regarding the Alpha Bank allegations to another U.S. government agency, and it too concluded that the materials did not show what Sussman claimed. In connection with the second presentation, Sussman made a familiar false statement to that agency, claiming that he was not providing the information on behalf of any client. With respect to the Alpha Bank materials, our investigation established that Joff had tasked a number of computer technology researchers who worked for companies he was affiliated with and had access to certain internet records to mine the internet data to establish an inference and narrative tying then candidate Trump to Russia. In directing these researchers to exploit their access in this manner, Joff indicated that he was seeking to please certain, quote, VIPs.
Well, who could that be?
Isn't that right? Cat hair all over me. In context, referring to individuals at Perkins Coie who were involved in campaign matters and the Clinton campaign. During its investigation, the office also learned that after the 2016 presidential election, Joff emailed an individual and told that person that he, Joff, was tentatively offered the top cybersecurity job by the Democrats when it looked like they'd win.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but we're mad at Trump for quid pro quo that never went.
Well, it doesn't count because they never actually got the job, so it wasn't quid pro quo.
I mean, that is fair. You could say the same thing with Trump. As explained in section below, the evidence collected by the office also demonstrated that prior to providing the unfounded Alpha Bank claims to the FBI, Sussman and Fusion GPS, the Clinton campaign's opposition research firm, had provided the same information to various news organizations and were pressing reporters to write articles about the alleged secret communications channel. Of course, they just made up shit and gave it to the media, defrauded the media, actually. Moreover, during his September 2016 meeting at the FBI, Sussman told Baker that an unnamed news outlet was in possession of the information and would soon publish a story about it. The disclosure of the media's involvement caused the FBI to contact the news outlet, whose name was eventually provided by Sussman, in the hope of delaying any public reporting on the subject. In doing so, it confirmed for the New York Times that the FBI was looking into the matter. On October 31st, 2016, less than 2 weeks before the election, the New York Times and other published articles on the Alpha Bank matter and the Clinton campaign issued tweets and public statements on the allegations of a secret channel of communications being used by the Trump organization and a Russian bank, allegations that have been provided to the media and the FBI by Fusion, GPS, and Sussman, both of whom were working for the Clinton campaign. Right. I mean, this is old news, but I mean, the long and short of it is, yeah, I mean, the Clinton campaign wanted their own October surprise. So they made up a bunch of shit, bought it, and then tried to get the FBI, tried to get him prosecuted and imprisoned for shit they made up and bought that was Russian misinformation. And then they manufactured an October surprise. It's just weird to me that, like, it's all coincidental that, like, these bad Apple FBI agents went along with it anyways. And that it was all tied to the Clinton campaign. They were like, oh, the Clintons are such good people for their manufactured October surprise. And that they didn't investigate anything. And it was all a happy little accident of biased people lying over and over again to everybody else. And how could they know? Let me just gobble up power with this thing I totally couldn't know. Let me just utilize this to censor free speech all throughout the internet on this thing I couldn't possibly know. It's just like, it just reeks of bullshit and cover-ups.
But it all worked out in the end, right?
Right. I'm with Casimir. This isn't the Durham Report. This is the Durham cover-up.
I wouldn't call it a cover up so much as a sweep it under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just, you know what? It's solved. Some bad apples are getting fired. But everything's still working how it should be. So you should restore your faith in the process and the system, and just put your head back down and stop looking and shut the fuck up.
Let's see how it's all wrapped up with a nice little bow now. Of course, I'm sure there will be some salacious details not mentioned, and you got to check out Durham's book for that. Make sure you go to Barnes & Noble and you buy one right now, because
it's only $59.99, hardcover only.
They are flying off the shelves, and by flying off the shelves, I mean Barnes & Noble bought a whole bunch of them so it could be a bestseller, and then they're going to throw them away.
Oh, kind of like how Fox News and CNN does too, whenever one of their big people puts out a book. Just bulk buy it and put them in a warehouse or recycle it.
Mm-hmm. Based on the review of Crossfire Hurricane and related intelligence activities, we conclude that the department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report. You don't say.
That sounds like a daily thing for them, but okay.
Right. Why don't you do an investigation on how many terrorist attacks the FBI has caused and how many mass shootings are theirs? As noted, former FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith committed a criminal offense by fabricating language in an email that was material to the FBI obtaining a FISA surveillance order. In other incidences, FBI personnel working on the same FISA application displayed, at best, a cavalier attitude towards accuracy and completeness. FBI personnel also repeatedly disregarded information requirements when they continued to seek renewals of that FISA surveillance, while acknowledging both then and in hindsight that they did not genuinely believe that there was probable cause to believe that the target was knowingly engaged in clandestine intelligence activities on behalf of a foreign power, or knowingly helping another person in such activities. And certain personnel disregarded significant exculpatory information that should have prompted investigative restraint and re-examination. It's just a bunch of word salad of like, they done goofed, guys. Whoopsie daisy. The FBI done goofed and made a few mistakes. But that one guy that, he got like a slap on the wrist, he was bad. He was bad. But like everybody else, like maybe they just done goofed and they weren't being as accurate as they could have. They were biased, Our investigation has also revealed that senior FBI personnel displayed a serious lack of analytical rigor towards the information that they received, especially information received from political affiliated persons and entities. This information in part triggered and sustained Crossfire Hurricane and contributed to the subsequent need for Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. In particular, there was significant reliance on investigative leads provided or funded directly or indirectly by Trump's political opponents. The department did not adequately examine or question these materials and the motivations of those providing them. Even when at about the same time the director of the FBI and others learned of significant and potentially contrary intelligence. It's really interesting? No mention of CISA, right? No mention of the growth of the Department of Homeland Security. No mention of the silencing of free speech online. No mention of the Twitter files and the fact that the FBI and the DHS and all of these organizations, right, the DHS mostly, had backdoor access that were, emailing them and pressuring them and threatening them with Russia situations and bad reports. No information of the coercion that was constantly carried out by the state as a means of silencing people, and then utilizing that power that they gained from Russia to do the same fucking thing when it came to COVID and anything else. No mention of that fucking power that was based upon nothing but lies being utilized for new things that are based upon nothing but lies. Oh, you want to talk about the oh my god, I can't remember the Jewish guy that came up with the hydroxychloroquine and zinc and azithromycin. Yeah, I can't remember his name. You want to talk about that method? Gone. You want to talk about the fact that the vaccines have been proven to be ineffective in such a way beyond what they claim? Gone. You want to talk about actual science? Gone. You want to talk about lab leak theory? Gone. You want to talk about the fact that masks don't work? Gone. All of this power that has nothing to do with this, all was gained and utilized and used as a pressure point against private entities as a means of the state controlling your speech. None of that shit. None of the actual consequences of this, of these lies. Just a few people done goofed, and the system needs to be cleaned up, and we need some good old boys in charge that are going to really crack heads and get this, right this ship. Oh, and by the way, Hillary Clinton, our political opponent, and my personal political person I don't like, that I pretend not to like, but I'm shaking her fucking hand and doing her dirty business on the side anyways. Bad girl, bad girl. But mostly, Russians even badder bad. You're muted.
Yeah, see, the reason none of that's mentioned is because this is to cover the bad things that happen. And while clearly the ends don't justify the means, we're going to keep those great ends that we got as the state, and only, shame the bad actors. But all that other stuff that you're talking about, dude, that's great. We would have gotten there eventually. Like, we just need to work on the process.
Right, you got it.
But the outcome's great.
In light of the foregoing, there is a continuing need for the FBI and department to recognize that lack of analytical rigor. Apparent confirmation bias. Oh man, apparent confirmation bias. What was your
what?
Where was your evidence is Strzok didn't like Trump, and that there were text messages between him and people working with him that they hated Trump and they wanted to get Trump because he bad guy. That's your evidence that it's all confirmation bias? Okay.
Nice.
An overwillingness to rely on information from individuals connected to political opponents caused investigators to fail to adequately consider alternative hypotheses and to act without appropriate objectivity or restraint in pursuing allegations of collusion or conspiracy between a U.S. political campaign and a foreign power.
Because they were involved in one.
Yeah. Although recognizing that in hindsight, much is clear, much of this also seems to have been clear at the time. We therefore believe it is important to examine past conduct to identify shortcomings and improve how the government carries out its most sensitive functions.
Anyone with an IQ above 90 would see all this as apparent.
Yeah. This does not recommend any wholesale changes in the guidelines and policies that the department and the FBI now have in place to ensure proper conduct and accountability in how counterintelligence activities are carried out. Rather, it is intended to accurately describe the matters that fell under our review and to assist the Attorney General in determining how the department and the FBI can do better. More credible job in fulfilling its responsibilities and in analyzing and responding to politically charged allegations in the future. Ultimately, of course, meeting those responsibilities comes down to the integrity of the people who take an oath to follow the guidelines and policies currently in place.
Yeah, and clearly that level of integrity of the people who take that oath is pretty fucking low.
It gets better. Guidelines that date from the time of Attorney General Levy that are designed to ensure the rule of law is upheld. As such, the answer is not the creation of new rules, but a renewed fidelity to the old.
Oh, honey, I know I've cheated on you 50,000 times, but now's not the time for us to get divorced. It's time for us to reaffirm our vows. That's what happened. I just forgot my vows. What?
The promulgation of additional rules and regulations to be ruled in yet more training sessions would likely prove to be a fruitless exercise if the FBI's guiding principles of fidelity, bravery, and integrity are not ingrained in the hearts and minds of those sworn to the FBI's mission of protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution of the United States. So I don't normally...
More training sessions, because at least if they're stuck in a fucking PowerPoint briefing for 3 hours straight, that's 3 hours they can't do their job. So I say more training sessions. I say we book them for 8 hours straight of training, 7 days a week. And then they go home. Oh, and all of this should be unpaid too.
So I don't normally do this, but we're gonna craft a tweet here live, okay? Because that is so fucking infuriating. We're gonna go ahead and do that. So, what a disgusting joke. The quote good ones are already stripped of their security clearance for testifying. Abolish the FBI.
Tweet.
There you go. Giant ass tweet. Let's go. It is a wall of text, and I don't care.